Welcome back to Good Day Northern Michigan. November is known as the deadliest month on the Great Lakes.
With nearly 100 historic shipwrecks spanning 4,300 miles of Lake Huron, the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary preserves and shares those stories for future generations.
Here with us to discuss their research, education, and community engagement, we've got Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary's maritime archaeologist and resource protection coordinator, Stephanie Gandulla. Stephanie, thanks for being here on Good Day.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I hope you have a large business card, because that's a very long title.
It is.
For you there.
A little too long.
Well, it's great to have you. You know, the first thing I thought of when I saw that you were coming on the program, I mean, we just had the anniversary of the Edmund Fitzgerald 49 years ago. Just a huge historic time in Michigan history. But as we said at the beginning here, we're talking hundreds of shipwrecks all across the Great Lakes and even up in your area near Thunder Bay. I mean, talk to us about how often this has happened.
Well, yes, and when you say hundreds of shipwrecks, we really could say thousands of shipwrecks. There's estimates of 6,000 to 10,000 wrecks across all 5 Great Lakes. But here, concentrated in the 4,300 square miles of Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary, we have identified 100. And the really cool thing is we think there's many more to discover. So you asked, how often do these things happen? I mean, terrible storms is what we're talking about here today. That's one of the main culprits for taking ships down, but there's lots of other reasons. Human error, terrible groundings on shallow shoals. So there's lots of reasons that ships used to wreck in the Great Lakes. Thankfully, with technology the way it is today and forecasting, we don't see that really anymore.
And, we're seeing the museum behind you. And of course, it goes into, protection, discovery, and it seems like education as well. But let's talk with discovery first. How do you guys go about finding and using technology to find maybe some of these shipwrecks that are in the Lake Superior area?
Actually, and I'm glad you said Lake Superior, because we are in Lake Huron. We are the small
Huron, yes.
Thunder Bay, Ontario, up in Canada on Lake Superior is a different place, but we're here much closer to you than you realize, probably just a couple hours away in beautiful Alpena, Michigan.
Yes.
So Lake Huron is the Thunder Bay that where we're based, and how we get to find shipwrecks is one of my favorite things to talk about, because we use remote sensing technologies. So we use sonar for the most part to go out and map the lake bottom, and so we have a multi-beam sonar mounted on the bottom of our research vessels that sends out sound waves, and how those sound waves come back lets us know what the lake bottom looks like. And so that's really important to understand the resources we're protecting, but it's also important in looking for shipwrecks.
I would imagine it's got to be pretty exciting when you make a new discovery. What goes into then preserving those shipwrecks, but also maybe figuring out which ship it was that went down? Obviously, it may depend on how much of that ship is still discoverable when you come across it.
Yes, very good point. So the dream of any archaeologist is to discover a ship that still has the name board on it. The big, like you see behind us, the Western Hope that's in our exhibits here, life-size schooner. But that's pretty uncommon that you're going to see that. The ships here, though, in the Great Lakes and in Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary are so well preserved because of the cold, fresh water that a lot of the details are still discernible. So you could understand what is it made of, what type of vessel was it, how many masts did it have. All of those types of clues are going to help us identify the shipwreck.
And talk a little bit about how you guys educate people about these shipwrecks. Are there ways for people to go and actually see these shipwrecks, or are they just videos that you show for people, either in the museum or if you go out to areas to educate people?
Oh, great question. So one of our the best jobs here is taking people to see the shipwrecks. One of our philosophies in managing this marine protected area here is accessibility. So we want to make sure that people of all abilities can access these wrecks, whether it's scuba diving to hundreds of feet deep, and we have a mooring buoy program that really facilitates that, or going out on a glass bottom boat. There's one that operates out of our museum here in Alpena, and so you can see a shipwreck without getting wet. But then you mentioned those videos. We bring back the technology, so you can even sit in your living room and experience a virtual reality dive of a shipwreck.
I'm curious, just what kind of visitors you get to Thunder Bay, and maybe you could talk a little bit about the excitement. I imagine from all ages, young to old, people just kind of get this excitement about finding these, or you guys finding these shipwrecks, and just maybe build some excitement about what you do.
Oh gosh, yes. I was just moments before we went live this morning, there was about 50 third graders that walked behind me into our classroom for a Get Into Your Sanctuary program is what we call it. So we invite every single third grader in the Alpena public school system and even in some counties beyond to experience the shipwrecks and the rich maritime history that we talk about here in our visitor center. So you mentioned, who comes here? We get everybody from those third grade, hundreds of third graders to Viking cruise ship passengers. In fact, nearly 100,000 people walk through the doors of our visitor center here in Alpena every year. So our goal is to educate folks about the rich maritime history that we protect here and then encourage accessibility to those.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And, why is it important to educate people about these shipwrecks and especially Michigan's maritime history?
So, I mean, people, if they understand the resource, if they learn the stories, they're really invested to then protect the place. And so we talk about these shipwreck stories being such compelling human stories. And then people are much more aware of the resources out there beyond the shipwrecks, the natural resources. So it's all about engaging people. People will protect what they love, Jacques Cousteau said. So that's our goal here, is to share these compelling stories and then engage the entire community in protecting them.
I'm curious as well. I mean, most people who live in Michigan, obviously we have a sense of being mostly surrounded by the Great Lakes, but I would imagine too, you get a lot of land lovers, for lack of a better term, who just don't realize that Michigan has the shipwrecks and the maritime history. I mean, that's obviously what you do, but it maybe just doesn't occur to people until they're actually at the sanctuary.
I think you're right. And it is so fun to see the surprise and the fascination in people's eyes when they're out on the glass bottom boat and they see a shipwreck in person firsthand for the first time, or they learn the stories here in our visitor center. And it is a really important part of our country's past. I mean, what we call the shipwreck century, which is what we explore here in the exhibits, really was a part of the Industrial Revolution and a big part of the global maritime economy, still is an important part. So it's such a joy to share this history and make sure people understand it and know the value of the maritime history of the Great Lakes.
That's great. We're almost out of time, but let me just ask you real quickly, how often do you go out in search of the next shipwreck, or is there something already underway right now?
Oh, there's always something underway. This is a great time of year now that the boats are put away and tucked in for the winter, but we're still planning our research projects. So next year we will be a full force effort to go out and continue mapping the lake bottom. It's pretty interesting that only about 20% of the Great Lakes have been mapped in high resolution, in high detail, where you can see if there's actual wrecks on the bottom. So we have a lot of work yet to do to understand what's at the bottom of the lake and to make more discoveries.
Absolutely. Much more to discover. Thank you so much, Stephanie. We really appreciate you being on Good Day Northern Michigan this morning.
Oh, it was so much fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.